that joy and gratitude frequency. How many of you would like to spend the rest of the afternoon over into the evening staring at this blank wall? You'd think I was crazy if I invited you to do that. But if you think about it a little bit, that's what we're really doing. We're staring at a wall. We're sitting here, we're gathered in this space, we're together in this place, staring at a wall. And we're not crazy. What we are doing, when we make a few adjustments, we go from just staring at a wall to watching this slide. This slide was produced on my computer at home. It was uploaded to the cloud, and then here it was downloaded from the cloud onto this computer, and the signals, the frequency, if you will, that went from that computer up to the projector that's up above our heads, that transmits it and displays it on the wall. So it's all about frequency. It's about things being set up in such a way that it happens. And so life becomes more than just staring at this wall. And I guess if I were to ask you for a moment, is this wall solid? Most of you would probably say, yes, it's solid. I mean, after all, it sounds pretty solid. If you were to run into it and try to get past it, you know that it's pretty much solid, unless your head is harder than I think it is. But you would think that, and so you would wonder that. If I were to ask you, is this image solid? You'd probably go, maybe not. But then the fact of the matter is, if I were tall enough, I could actually get in front of it, and part of the image would be displayed on my body. So when we think of those things, that the wall we would say is solid, but the image not so much. But the truth of the matter is that both the wall and the image are in vibration. They're vibrating at certain frequencies. They're vibrating of those frequencies, and the wall itself, while we talked about it being solid, is primarily empty. There are a few microscopic atoms that are bouncing around that constitute it, but ultimately the wall that we think to be solid is empty. And what happens is that our brains create, if you will, a kind of hologram that hides the complexity of the real world. And what we see when we look around us are reflections of our dominant ideas and wishes and emotions. And we live in a world of infinite possibilities and potential, but we tend to download the same ones over and over and over again. Joe Dispenza has a book that's called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. But the thing that he talks about is that while we have this vast field of infinite possibilities, most of the time we go on thinking the same thing, responding the same way, reacting in the same manner. And so it becomes incumbent upon us to look differently, because we call this reality. And how many of us, first thing in the morning, we wake up, what do? We wake up. Nowadays, what's happened for many of us, we reach over very close to us, look at our phone, maybe to see what time it is, maybe to see who might have texted us or called us, maybe to see what happened in the middle of the night. All of those things, but we get caught up in these patterns, and we get caught up in these things, not recognizing and realizing the vast, wonderful, beautiful, powerful, magnificent, God-magnificent world that is around us, and the field of infinite possibilities, infinite potentiality that is there before us. Remember that the world as we see it, what we call reality, everything that we see in this world starts as a wave of energy. We call those things what? Thoughts. We call them, remember, everything that we see is created twice. Created in the mind, and then it manifests in reality. And what happens is that when we do that, then those things that we see that are solid appearing, they started out as just pure energy, pure thoughts, the chairs that you're sitting in, this wall that I knocked on a moment, all of those things, that's how they began. So who are you? Who are you? You know, I might say, well, I'm Maeve, I'm Aliata, I'm Gabriel, I'm Mary, I'm Matthew, I'm Rodrigo, I'm Luis, I'm Eric. But who are you really? Who you are, you hear me say this all the time, is a unique, individualized expression of God. And each of you has a signature frequency that you send out that transmits your beliefs, your ideas, all your expectations, and all of those things about life, and it attracts back to you those situations and experiences that match your vibrations. If you think the world is friendly and kind, that's what you'll get. If you think the world is hostile and confusing and threatening, that's what you'll tend to attract. If you think that people are out to get you, that's primarily what you'll see. No matter how nice people might be, no matter how nice their intentions might be, we will interpret them as people trying to get them. If somebody walks up to you and says, good morning, you go, what about it? Why are you saying that to me? But the thing of it is that ultimately, when we understand that thoughts held in mind produce after their kind, the things that we expect, the things in the way in which we see life tends to be what we get. So what we're talking about this month is getting on that joy and gratitude frequency. We're talking about amping up our vibration so that rather than just when we get up in the mornings and, oh boy, it's another day, or tomorrow morning, it's Monday morning, all that thing, oh God, what a morning, oh God, what a day, oh God, what a day. It's Monday morning, amping up our frequency. Now I know y'all saying, you don't know my life. But one of the things that we can do is work on making joy and gratitude are dominant frequency. Joy and gratitude are dominant frequency. But what happens is static can get in the way and ruin that frequency. There's several ways that that happens. One of them is the cultural paradigms that we have. First off, many of us operate from the belief system that we are separate from everyone and everything else, not realizing how connected we truly are. We truly are connected. When we talk about that we are all unique, individualized expressions of God. God is one. God is all there is. We are connected to one another. We stand here on Sunday mornings. We look one another in the eye. We say, I greet you. I bless you. I see God in you. And that stands for all of us. That means all of us. We are there. But what happens so often as a part of our cultural conditioning and programming, we seek out problems. We compose plans to eliminate them, and then we think that we can use willpower to stay in line. Sometimes we get caught up in expecting the worst. I know last night there was at a certain point where the football game where Memphis and SMU, and when it got down to where SMU was starting to make a comeback, one of my friends that knows I was a house divided, as a matter of fact, because I have a degree from SMU and a degree from the University of Memphis. So I was right there in the middle. Actually, I was rooting for Memphis. But in the midst of that, as SMU started to come back, one of my friends texted me and said, this is where Memphis is going to mess up. It's going to be like usual. And I was pulling, come on, Memphis, come on, Memphis. Because when this is all over, I want to be able to text him back and say, look at what we did. Look at what happened. And of course, it happened that way. We were able to. But why is it that so often we expect the worst? Why is it that we spend time? I used to do a training, conduct a training for people. And one of the things that would happen in that training was I would talk to people and I would ask them, describe your worst customer service experience. People would get up and they would go on and on and on about how bad this was, how rude the person was, how rotten that was, and I would have to set a time limit and stop. And then I say, okay, now tell me about a good customer service experience. And that time shot by just like that because people would kind of sit there and they'd say, oh yeah, I think I went someplace. And I started to wonder, is it because we so lack good customer service, or is it because we are so keyed in to focusing on the negative that that's what activates our energy and what we get caught in? Another way the static gets in the way of that frequency of joy and gratitude is that there's that voice in our head that tells us that we're not adequate or we're not good enough. And it gets exacerbated by the media. You can't be exposed to any type of media without commercials that advertise and try to get you to do this and try to have that and take this and buy that and wear this and appear this way and do those things. So much of it that is really not completely necessary, but we've been convinced that it is. And even what's so funny these days is that we will have those pharmaceutical commercials that will advertise these particular drugs and things that we should take. And then in the background at the end, they run through all of the side effects, and the side effects are so much worse than what you're supposed to be curing. Wow. And you want me to ask my doctor about this? After all of those possible side effects? But things that will convince us that we're not adequate enough, that we're not good enough, when we are. Another way in which we have static that plays out, that blocks us from having that joy and gratitude frequency is sloppy judgment. Sloppy judgment. As soon as we start judging things and people and situations, then we start finding ourselves getting caught up in that, and things stop there and we miss the beauty of things that are happening. In the book, Think and Grow Rich by Pam Grout, which is a lot of the inspiration for me for this message and for this series, in that book, she talks about how we can get so caught up in making judgments about things that we miss what should otherwise be obvious in life. So she wrote about in one of her other books about a woman who had gotten so caught up in things and all of that is that she missed a building. That she actually missed a building. And a woman wrote to her and said, that's crazy, how can you miss a building? And then the woman had to write back to Pam a few days later and say, well, you know, I have to apologize to you because you were right. Let me tell you what happened. I used my phone, the GPS on my phone, to guide me to a building, but I was so taken back by how dirty the street was and how other things were there, and I was just fussing about that and all the things there, and the GPS was telling me I'd arrived at the building, but I didn't see the building. I kept walking back and forth trying to find the building. This is a terrible place. Look at these dirty streets. Look at those people. When's the city going to do something? Why don't people have pride about those things? And finally, the third time, she realized that she was standing in front of the building. But she had gotten so caught up in the judgment and all of the other kinds of attitude that was there that she missed out on what was around her, and she missed out on life. And so it's important for us to understand these things when it comes to that, because sloppy judgment can cause us to cut everything else out. So I'm going to challenge you this morning. Give your mind a new job. Give your mind a new job. And that new job is simply this. Begin finding things in life for which you can express gratitude. find yourself counting the things that are working in your life. Find those things that are going right rather than what's going wrong. Find yourself caught up in the goodness of this world rather than all of the stuff that's going on. When we begin to do this, a shift happens. There's a group of friends and I, we started this a few days ago, but every morning we wake up and we say out loud or to ourselves or however we want to, this is going to be an amazingly awesome day. And then what we do is we find 3 things that we've already experienced, not what we're looking to have happen, but what has already happened that are great, that are powerful, that are fantastic. And then we send a text out to one another. And it's amazing. It's wonderful to read just the little things sometimes that people will note and say how wonderful and how great this is and how wonderful that is. But what happens is it starts to change the vibration for the day. So rather than getting up being a sourpuss, we are anticipating a wonderful, magnificent day. We've given our minds a new job, and that is to find something that we can celebrate. And you might say, well, you know, all of that sounds good and stuff, but you know, my life, give it a try. What else do you have to do with your mind? A.J. Jacobs, who wrote the book 1,000 Thanks, and I talked about A.J. Jacobs last year. You may not remember who he is, but I was so excited when I heard about his story and when I got his book. A.J. Jacobs said that he was really an agnostic moving toward being an atheist. But he said every now and then when he would sit down before a plate of food at the table, he would offer a little bit of thanks. He said he wasn't sure about thanking God or the universe or whatever it might be. So he would just say, I'm thankful for all the people that made this possible. He had a teenage son who would hear him say that. And he'd say, Dad, you know they can't hear you right. He said, you know, you're right. I'm going to find something, though, that I can be thankful for, but I'm going to take it beyond just saying it out loud at my table or something. I'm going to find something more than that. And so as he contemplated, well, what can it be? What is it that I'm going to do? The next morning, he found himself standing in line at his local coffee shop. And he said, that's it. I love my coffee. I can't start my day without my coffee. I'm going to thank the barista for this wonderful cup of coffee. So as he got his coffee, he thanked him. And the barista was kind of surprised because the barista shared with him that not a lot of people necessarily gave thanks. They just kind of went through the transaction. But he could tell that A.J. Jacobs was trying to be sincere and express his gratitude. So A.J. said, but it seemed like expressing it to the barista wasn't enough. That while the barista prepared the coffee, somebody's responsible for the beans. So he started to do some research and he discovered who it was that created the beans, and he asked about that, and then he decided he would say thank you for the people who roasted the beans and all of that. And then he thought about the cup that the coffee was in and about the cover that went on that. And long story short, he actually traveled all the way to South America, where the people that grew the beans and all of that were there. That he went to the place that sourced the coffee beans that went into making his coffee. Not only that, he started sending out thank yous to the people who manufactured the cup. He found out that the particular lid that was used, that there are only a few types of lids that are even available in the entire United States, and how there's kind of a war, if you will, sort of going on as to which one would be dominant. But he thanked the people who made the particular lid that was on his cup of coffee. And then he started thinking about, well, there were trucks that transported the coffee here, and there were people who packed the boxes with the cups and all that. So he found as many people as he could to thank them for that cup of coffee. And I know very few of us in here are going to go to that length and see people smiling like, yeah, that's good. I'm just going to drink my coffee. But I will tell you this. Whether we go to that extent or not is not what I'm advocating. But when we make the shift to becoming thankful and grateful for this day and for every day and for the things that are in our lives, there are things that begin to happen, shifts that begin to take place, things that come our way. I thought about just the other day the fact that I personally am coming up on almost a year now where it was that things happened to me where I almost wasn't here. And so when people say, good to see you, and I would respond, I used to never say that, but I say it now, good to be seen. Because I realized how close I came to not being seen. And the thing of it is that when we begin expressing joy and gratitude, it doesn't have to be that dramatic. It doesn't have to be anything like that, but just the little things in life that when we are thankful for them. Some of us remember that old gospel songs, count your many blessings, name them one by one, count your many blessings and see what God has done. Whatever it might be, just be grateful, thankful, joyful, and life will take you on that joy and gratitude frequency, and you'll begin to know that all is well. And so it is.